Giancarlo and Votto. Value so high, but ADP so low. Frank Lloyd. And then we gotta update that one.
Happy Cookout Friday and live from First Pitch, Arizona.
Woo.
It's fantasy baseball today.
Woo! Woo!
I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, we are answering or trying to answer the toughest questions for 2026. And later on in the show, we'll play a game of Scotty Doesn't Know, even though Scott White is nowhere to be found. Chris, true story, the question that we have received most this weekend so far, where is Scott White?
Every time we go to one of these events, it's always the question, and it's really Scott doesn't want to leave his grandma's bedroom.
Grandma's living room. Bedroom would be a
Excuse
little
me.
bit weirder, but yes, grandma's living room. That's correct. As mentioned, we are live at First Pitch, Arizona. Big thanks to Baseball HQ, producer James Gale over there. We appreciate you. Chris, we've been out to a few AFL games so far since we've been here, and Kevin McGonigle.
Yeah.
What do you know? Tigers' top prospect. Last night, we get an RBI triple. Earlier today, two-run homer.
It was like an RBI triple. It was
it
a
was an
hard
AFL
hit
triple,
ball
yeah.
that probably should have been a single, misplayed, but Friday, a legit smoked two-run homer out to right center. He's a smaller dude, but he gets the most out of it because he's like 5'10", I think. So it's more hit than power, but there's clearly enough power there.
He has looked as advertised so far. He's been playing third base in the AFL, hopefully with a big spring training. Maybe we see him up on opening day. So it would be pretty cool to see that and see how the rest of the AFL plays out. Let's jump into the toughest questions for 2026. We actually created a Google survey gathering data for each of these questions. If you participated, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. But just to kind of poll the general public and see how people are feeling early on heading into 2026, we will reference those results throughout the show. We got 427 responses, which is an okay sample size.
Yeah.
True story. We had like 150 the other day. We asked Scott White to tweet it out, and we got us all the way up to 427.
Scott White bump.
That's the Scott White bump. He's a dude. All right, here we go. Up first, the number one question for 2026. We've heard it a bunch of times already. Who should be the SP4 in drafts after Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens, and Garrett Crochet? Originally, we had 8 options for this question. Now we have 2. Yoshinobu Yamamoto or the field. That's basically it. That's what it has become at this point. Who should be drafted as the SP4 for next season? So, by a show of hands, audience participation, should the SP4 next season be Yoshinobu Yamamoto?
It's about half, maybe a little less.
Maybe
than
a little
half?
bit less than half. All right, the field. I assume everyone else is part of the field. So, all right. So let's talk about some of these options. The Google results say, by the way, 57% chose Yamamoto to be the SP4 drafted for next season. The next closest was Christopher Sanchez with 10.5% of the vote. Hunter Green, 10.3%. Logan Gilbert, 7%. And we did get a write-in vote for Ariel Cohen and his wicked screwball as the SP4 for next season. So it wasn't me, I swear. So if we look at early ADP, Chris, I mean, there's pretty obvious top 3. There's Skubal, Skeens, and Crochet all going inside the top 12. We dropped down to Yamamoto, who's at 26.2. And then we dropped down again to Christopher Sanchez at 36. So even early ADP is kind of reflecting these early poll results.
And what I think will be interesting to watch is whether this consensus forms and stays stable, that Yamamoto's kind of in a tier of his own, maybe a round ahead of that next group, or if we get a little further from how good he was in the World Series, because he was incredible. The whole postseason, 2 complete games, got 3 wins in the World Series, including part of why, spoiler, I don't think Yamamoto should be the number 4 SP is the Game 7 win that he got was the very first time since he got to the majors that he's pitched on less than 5 days of rest. It was 0 days rest. It was very impressive. But then given the way he was used in Japan, it might be the first time he's pitched on less than 5 days rest ever as a professional. So I don't know if we want to just get into that specifically now, but I do think the World Series is obviously weighing heavily on people's minds. I'm fine with Yamamoto as the number 4 SP. I don't think there should be a gap between him and the rest. I think it should probably be 3 starting pitchers in the first round, probably none until the 4th round. but maybe the whole 4th round should be pitchers.
And when we're referencing that, we're talking about 12-team leagues.
12
I know
teams.
people play in some 15-teamers, and a lot of NFBC drafts are 15-team leagues. But most of the time when we talk about round value, it's going to be for 12-team leagues. Just to remind people, I mean, you mentioned some of what Yamamoto did in the World Series. His overall postseason, 1.45 ERA, a .78 WHIP, over 37 1/3 innings. That included back-to-back complete games, 3 wins in the World Series, as you mentioned. And I swear, this is the way I was leaning before the postseason, was to have Yamamoto as my SP4 heading into next season. I know that there will be some limitations in terms of workload, and I think that's a totally fair point. I think realistically, we're probably not projecting too many pitchers for more than 170 innings for next season anyway, so that's about where he got to in the regular season this year. But I think Yamamoto, again, even before the postseason, he just represents such a high floor, and I think a pretty high ceiling too, because he gets a lot of ground balls, he limits hard contact, and it's like a 10K per 9. He's not really a slouch in that way either.
He's really good.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me is when you're talking about drafting at this point, especially when you're talking about drafting at this point for starting pitchers, I don't want to say nobody's safe, but
I'll say it.
They are,
Nobody's safe.
Yeah, they are varying degrees of unsafe, and they're mostly all unsafe. Maybe Yamamoto could be viewed as slightly more safe, certainly than Hunter Green. I think he's significantly safer, but I don't know if you should be drafting the number 4 SP in the 2nd or early 3rd round for safety. And I think if you line up Logan Gilbert, Chris Sale, Hunter Green, specifically those 3 guys, maybe DeGrom, maybe Cole Reagans, I think you can throw in there. If they all hit their like 90th percentile outcome, I think they're all better than Yamamoto. And it just comes down to there is a hard ceiling on how many innings you're going to get out of Yamamoto. It's
And just the year prior,
175.
he did have a pretty severe shoulder injury too. So it's, we do have that kind of looming in the back of our minds.
Like, can he really be that much better than he was in 2025 when he was the number 8 starting pitcher? I think he's much more likely to finish as a top 12 starting pitcher than certainly Chris Sale, given his injury history. But I think Sale has a better chance to be the number 4 SP or number 2 if, things go right. We've seen that very recently.
And when we talk value-based drafting too, if you consider Yamamoto in the same tier as Chris Sale or Brian Wu or Hunter Green or any of these other options for SP4, Cole Reagans, and you can get those guys a round or 2 later, why would you take Yamamoto in the early, late 2nd or early 3rd round when you can maybe at the end of the 4th you can just take like a Brian Wu or somebody like that? Right?
I would guess by the time we get to February and March, and especially, with Shohei going to be a full-time starter, I think we're going to get a lot more discussion, a lot more reminders that this is going to be a 6-man rotation. And while most teams occasionally use a 6-man, the Dodgers have the hardest ceiling in terms of how many starts they're going to get. You're going to get maybe 31 starts out of Yamamoto.
Yeah.
The
and
other
not
guys
just because
might
it's a
get
6-man rotation, but they want to spread him out. Like, they want to spread
like I said, he's never
Yamamoto
started,
and Ohtani out, so I totally get that. Well, the million-dollar question, Chris, what is your answer to who the SP4 should be drafted?
I think it's Logan Gilbert or
You had to know
Chris
this question
Sale.
was coming, Chris. Come
Yeah, it's Logan Gilbert or Chris Sale. I think in terms of skill sets, both of them are just incredibly strong. Chris Sale, it's obviously been 2 straight seasons of a sub-2.5 ERA. He has the injury history, but in terms of like the kinds of injuries that I think are worrisome moving forward, there's just not that much for Chris Sale. He had the shoulder injury, I think, at the end of 2021. But other than that, it's been like he broke his finger riding a bicycle. He broke a rib making a play in the 9th inning of it. Like, it's been a lot of freak injuries for Chris Sale. And I know
my only thing is, like, he's 37.
Yes, he's 37, and maybe
he's
he's got like hollow bones, and like he's
he needs
more
milk.
Yeah, but like he looks bird-like. I can see it, but and then Logan Gilbert. I mean, it was like a 36% strikeout rate this season. I think he had the 3rd highest K- walk ratio. He did have the flexor strain this season. That's a pretty big red flag, but it was 200 innings each of the previous 2 seasons. I don't think he had missed a start with injury since becoming a pro before, like May of this year. So I think both of those guys, there's risk involved. I think the skill set's just stronger for both of them than Yamamoto. So if I'm going to be fishing in that tier for pitchers, it's going to be for the highest upside possible rather than, kind of a higher floor like Yamamoto.
Logan Gilbert was interesting, too, because I don't know if this is because he missed time with the injury, but they didn't really treat him like a workhorse this season. He went 6+ innings in just 8 of 25 starts. In 2024, he went 6+ innings in 26 of 33 starts. So they relied on him much more the year prior.
The walk rate was a little higher. The strikeout rate was higher.
He was just less efficient this year.
Yeah, I think it was more of an efficiency thing. And then obviously, in the immediate aftermath of the elbow strain, they were probably being a little more careful.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the biggest questions heading into next season. I don't know that there is a wrong answer now. Eventually, there will be a wrong answer based on the way guys perform and who gets hurt and things like that. I tweeted this out a couple weeks ago. I got a lot of angry Phillies fans. Phillies fans, don't be so angry.
Calm down, guys.
But they all think that Christopher Sanchez should be. I think he's right in that mix. I think he's in that conversation. We were talking to Nick Pollack just before. He has Brian Wu as his SP4. I think Brian Wu is right there in that group as well. So very interesting question heading into next season. But it now has become Yamamoto versus the field, basically, for that SP4.
I will be surprised. I will say I was surprised how little Jacob deGrom there was. He got like 1% of the vote, and he stayed healthy. We got the full season. Yeah. The upside wasn't as high, but I do think there's a chance that the skill set might be a little better, another full year removed. So I could see there, like, the slider still has like a 50% whiff rate. The changeup, which he doesn't use, I think probably nearly enough, had like a 45% whiff rate. The fastball was still very strong. So
he did kind of fade down the stretch, and he gave up more home runs, I think, over his last 10 starts or so. And just have to worry about, at his age, how will his body react to throwing 172 innings this past season. It's just something he hasn't done in so long. So I think he's in that mix. I probably would have him lower down in that group, but I wouldn't really blame anybody if they wanted to take him as the SP4 for next season. Let's get into the next question here. And Nick Kurtz was a huge league winner in fantasy baseball this past season. Would you take Nick Kurtz in the first round of fantasy baseball draft? So the options we had here: yes in a 12-team league, yes in a 15-team league, or no. So by a show of hands, would you take Nick Kurtz in the first round of a 12-team league next season?
Nobody here.
He thought about it. I see it over there. Someone over there thought about it.
We got some,
Yeah? Nick Kurtz?
Solidarity.
Is it just because of his first name, or?
I don't care about stolen bases as much as other people in 5x5.
All right, fair enough. What about yes in a 15-team league, you would take Nick Kurtz? All right, so we got a few more hands there, and then everyone else is pretty much a no. Yeah. But, the way that people were talking about him towards the end of the season, it felt like a foregone conclusion that he would be kind of, one of those late first-round picks. I don't think he's going to be far off. He probably winds up as like a early to mid-second-round pick. I think the early ADP on Nick Kurtz is...
It's right around 15, I think.
15.3. So, yeah, he's right there in that mix.
When we were originally throwing this conversation around, planning for this, it was like, is Nick Kurtz a first-rounder or Nick Kurtz versus Vladimir Guerrero? Yeah. How we were framing it. And I think this was before the playoffs really were going.
I think Vlad's postseason made that a lot closer.
I think that's going to make it a lot closer, because in the mock draft that we did for FBT last week, Guerrero actually went ahead. I think he was the first pick of the second round. Kurtz was like 17th overall. I think Kurtz went in the right spot. I think 17 overall sounds great for him. I think that's probably a round too early for Vlad. As good as he is, yes.
Too early for him, okay.
Yeah, I think Kurtz is more of a mid to late first rounder. I think Vlad's 2-3 turn in the 12-team league.
I think if that remains the case, I'm much more likely to take Vlad. Vlad, I mean, while he flashed in the postseason, he's just so frustrating. Every regular fantasy season that we get is, he kind of fluctuates, and we just don't really get that big power output from Vlad. And we know he's capable of it. We just saw it in the playoffs. Like, he's immensely talented.
The last 100 games of 2024, all of 2021.
But it's together for a whole season. It's just, Nick Kurtz, by the way, 36 homers, an OPS just over 1,000 in 117 games. His full season pace, 49 homers, 124 runs scored, 119 RBI. The power is insane. The average exit velocity, the barrel rate, he can hit home runs to all fields, as we saw. But I do think there's significant batting average risk for Nick Kurtz. His XBA was 255. That was while hitting 290. His strikeout rate was 31%. And while it got better in August, I thought he would build off of that. It jumped back up to up over 30% again in September. So if Nick Kurtz remains an early second-round pick, I'm probably just going to be out at that price.
Yeah, so here's it never feels good to, like, poo-poo the hot young rookie, because I think Nick Kurtz is an incredible hitter. I think That A's lineup, I think they were 12th in runs scored this year. I would take the under, which is to say they would finish higher. It was an annoying way to say that. I think that ballpark's going to be a huge help for him. I think it's basically the best hitter's ballpark outside of Coors Field. I look at this stat. Nick Kurtz was the 6th rookie to have at least 450 plate appearances and a 1,000 OPS. And the list of guys is really impressive. It's Aaron Judge, Albert Pujols, Ryan Braun, Ted Williams, and, of course, Bernie Carbo. Who could forget Bernie Carbo?
Yeah.
1977, I think, 1,004 OPS. Judge's next season, 919. Pujols, 955. Braun, 888. Ted Williams, okay, he's the best hitter ever, 1036. Bernie Carbo, 677. It's probably not a fluke, but I think you should bet on 100 points of OPS regression from Nick Kurtz. And that's probably mostly going to come from batting average. I think he's more like a 260 hitter than a 290 hitter. He's probably one of the safest bets for 35, 40 homers in baseball. He's going to drive in a bunch of runs. He's going to score a bunch of runs. I just think he's likelier to be Matt Olson than Aaron Judge, I guess, would be the comp.
But it could be kind of that high-end Matt Olson season, maybe not necessarily with the batting average. The one thing I do wonder with Kurtz, and we've seen this with Judge, not that like we want to comp anybody to Judge, the hitter that he's turned into, but even early career Judge, while striking out 30% of the time, he was able to run a high batting average just because he hit the ball so hard. So is there a chance that Nick Kurtz, despite striking out 30% of the time, can still hit 270, 280 just because he hits the ball as hard as he does?
It's possible.
It is possible.
His BABIPs in the minors were sky high.
Yeah.
He might just be a really, like, Mike Trout was always a super high BABIP guy early on in his career as well. So it's certainly possible. It's just you shouldn't bet on outliers, especially if you're betting how much profit is there on the 15th pick with Nick Kurtz. I think you're betting that's pretty close to the ceiling for a guy who won't steal bases, and even like an optimistic batting average projection is probably more like 275, 280.
All right, let's move on to the next one here, and we're going to be talking about Roki Sasaki and Mason Miller. What should their roles be in 2026? So the options here, both should be starters, both should be closers. Roki starts, Miller relieves, or Miller starts and Roki relieves. That's definitely not confusing at all. But by a show of hands, how many people here think Roki Sasaki and Mason Miller should both be starters next season?
We got two.
All right. What about both should be closers next season? All right. That is a lot more than two that think Roki and Miller should be relievers for next season. What about Roki starts and Miller relieves? Okay, quite a few for those as well. And then the last one is Miller starts and Roki relieves.
You got a couple.
So just two. All right. So look, most people either think that it should be both should be closers or Roki starts and Miller relieves for next season. And the survey results, 46% say that both should be closers, 35% say Roki starts, Miller relieves. The other options, 11% both should be starters, 8% Miller starts, and Roki relieves. For me, Chris, this one's interesting because I think there's two ways to answer this question. What I think they should do is that they should I think Roki should get a chance to start again. I think Mason Miller should relieve. Yeah. What I think is going to happen is that they're going to try both out as starters next season.
Unfortunately, my concern with Miller specifically is I just really don't think he can be a starter. He's just never shown the ability to remain healthy while starting a starter's workload. I want to say when he got to the majors, he had thrown like 40 innings professionally because of injuries. I think he's a closer. He's gigantic. Like he's got
Mason Miller?
Mason Miller. Like, he's built like an NFL safety. He's really big. It's just
massive.
He came to his velocity late, and I just don't know. We just haven't seen him be able to hold up. I think it makes sense why the Padres, given what they gave up for him and given their very obvious needs in the rotation, it makes sense why they would want to use him that way. I just think it's inviting disaster. As for Sasaki, I agree they should start him or try to start him as a starter.
He's just still so young,
Yeah, you shouldn't give up on that. I don't think he's going to be effective as a starter, at least based on what we saw. Even in the postseason, like the ERA was pretty low for Sasaki, but it wasn't a lot of strikeouts. It wasn't as many whiffs as you'd like. And this was pitching in, usually 1 inning roll, sometimes 2 inning roll, being able to max out and air it out. I didn't think Roki Sasaki, even if he was going to be in the bullpen, okay, you draft him pretty high because he's a Dodgers closer, presumably. I don't think he was all that impressive pitching out of the bullpen. I expected, with the velocity back, I expected there to be more whiffs. I expected there to be more strikeouts, and he looked better, but it wasn't like shutdown closer, at least what I saw.
Yeah, and just to remind people what the Padres gave up to get Mason Miller in that trade was Leo DeVries, who is like a top 10 overall prospect in all of baseball. Even if Mason Miller, they had 4 years of, or however many years of team control as the best closer in baseball, I don't think that's worth giving up Leo DeVries. Again, we don't know what Leo DeVries is going to be, but so far, I mean, even since being traded over to the A system, I mean, he was mashing it in the minors.
I just think that's a really risky way to view it. I understand they may view it, but that feels like was the gambler's fallacy. You're pot committed. You gotta keep chasing it. I think Mason Miller's likeliest high value role is going to be as the best closer in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if the way they look at it is they had success doing this with other pitchers. Now, granted, I mean, Seth Lugo, when he transitioned from being a reliever to starter, didn't throw 103 miles per hour, so it's not exactly the same thing. They did have Michael King, who came over from the Yankees, and obviously the Yankees transitioned him as well. On the Dodgers side of things, I also think that they're just going to be pretty aggressive this offseason in the reliever market, whether that's a trade or Robert Suarez is available, Devin Williams is available, Edwin Diaz, well, I think is going to wind up back with the Mets. What if the Dodgers just throw a crazy amount of money at him? Like, we've seen that happen before. So, I do think that they're probably going to wind up trying to sign a closer in the offseason, and perhaps Roki Sasaki doesn't get that chance.
Signing 2 closers last offseason
worked out great.
Didn't work out for them somehow.
Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates, did not work out so well. All right, next question. Here we go. We have, where would you draft James Wood and Pete Crow Armstrong? I mean, just a reminder, these guys were 2 of the best players in fantasy baseball in the first half of the season and then really collapsed down the stretch here. The options: top 15, top 24, top 36, top 48, outside the top 50. Again, for both James Wood and Pete Crow Armstrong. So, by a show of hands, top 15. Anyone drafting both PCA and James Wood, top 15?
No, you shouldn't.
Nah, you shouldn't do that. Top 24?
Probably shouldn't either.
All right, all right.
We got one.
What about top 36? All right, a lot more hands there. We're third round of a 12-team league, early third round in a 15-teamer. What about top 48 for PCA and James Wood, and then outside the top 50?
All right, we got a couple of haters.
We do have a couple of haters. Sam, what did they do to your Mariners, man? Come on, anything there? Yeah. All right. So the results that we got from the Google survey, 42% went with top 36 as well, which by a show of hands, I think that's the most that we had here as well. 32% said top 48, 14% for top 24, 12% outside the top 50, only 1% for top 15.
And this was when we did we did a re-ranking the first 2 rounds at the All-Star break, and I think PCA was number 17. I want to say Wood was definitely also top 24 at that time. They were both on at least 30 paces. PCA was on like a 45 pace at the All-Star game.
Ridiculous.
And I remember people in the comments being upset that we had PCA as low as 17, that we were doing him a disservice. I actually think James Wood's second half might have been more concerning, though. And I'm still waiting for some kind of James Wood was playing through an injury report, because his sprint speed fell off. He was like 65th percentile this season. He stopped running nearly as much. He got worse in the second half against lefties, although he was pretty bad the whole time. The quality of contact wasn't, because it's just the whole game really took a step back from James Wood in a way that felt less like what happened with PCA, which I think was just he's a volatile player. I don't think PCA was much different in the first half versus the second half. There were some changes in his batting stance that were noticed, but for the most part, I think that's just kind of who PCA is going to be. And you've got to live with the ups and downs. He's going to be volatile because he's got really bad swing decisions, but on the whole, I don't think the second half of the season told us something new about PCA. And I worry that maybe James Wood's struggles in the second half, if he wasn't dealing with an injury, could portend some real risk there.
Yeah, and we heard this about his profile when he was in the minors, right? James Wood is such a massive human being that he's just obviously going to have some holes in that swing. And so in that second half, 223 batting average, 690 OPS, 39% strikeout rate, 79% zone contact, 14.4% swinging strike rate. So just across the board, very worrisome numbers there for James Wood. I mean, there is a chance that he was playing through an injury, like you said, or maybe he was just being exploited a little bit and just has natural holes in his swing.
And I think we can sometimes forget these guys are humans. He was playing on a very bad team that I think entered the season with some expectations and certainly some hope that they would take a step forward. And I feel like the vibes in Washington were just rotten all season. So it's like it's entirely possible that the 22-year-old just didn't respond well to that in a way that maybe doesn't tell us anything moving forward.
What percentage chance would you put on the home run derby just completely ruining James Wood? I know you're a big home run derby guy.
2%. I don't think that's the answer.
All right. Well, I tried.
Cal Raleigh still got his 60 homers, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Early ADP, by the way, James Wood is at 29.8 and PCA is at 31.5. Just to give people a little.
That's surprising.
Surprising why?
That Wood's ahead of PCA because PCA at least has the stolen base floor.
Mm-hmm.
If they're, I think they're relatively equally volatile. Maybe Wood is a more talented hitter, certainly.
Yep.
But PCA would seem to have a much higher stolen base floor.
What if people are just chasing the power ceiling with James Wood, right? Like the opportunity to hit, 45, 50 home runs with, 15 to 20 steals or something like that.
That's entirely possible. And I think there's basically no risk that James Wood playing for a mediocre Nationals team is ever going to lose playing time. PCA's got some really startlingly poor numbers against lefties. I think it was like 55 strikeouts to 5 walks with like an 85 mile per hour average exit velocity.
But he's just so good defensively. I can't imagine a world where they ever sit him. Yeah.
But they do, even if they let Kyle Tucker leave, they have more major league caliber outfielders than they necessarily need any given day. So I think there's just a small amount of playing time risk with PCA if he continues to be, that bad against lefties.
Just to put some names around here in that ADP range, Pete Alonso, Mookie Betts, Ketel Marte, Zach Neto. That's kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, certainly some safer guys. And then you have Neto, who has a similar power-speed combo.
Does that sound right?
That feels right, just depending on what your maybe what your first round was, whether you're chasing upside with Wood especially.
Yordan Alvarez going behind both?
I would take Yordan Alvarez ahead of both of them.
A
personally.
Little injury risk.
I know that is a lot of injury risk, but I don't think there's more than 4 hitters who have a better chance of a 300 average and 40 homers than Yordan Alvarez.
Let's keep things moving here, and one of the craziest things I think that happened in all of fantasy this year, Juan Soto and Josh Naylor, all these stolen bases, where did they come from? Both guys ranking bottom 15% in sprint speed. I mean, in Josh Naylor's case, he's like second percentile sprint speed, legitimately one of the slowest players in all of baseball. And we had Soto give us 38 steals. Josh Naylor went from 6 the previous year to 30, which is insane. So we set some over-unders for stolen bases for these two. Juan Soto, the over-under is 19.5 stolen bases. Over 19.5 for Soto next year. How many people think he goes over that number?
All right, we got a few. Definitely a minority.
What about under 19.5?
It's everyone else.
Yeah, that's everyone else. Yeah, so a little bit more people think he's going under. The results agreed. 60% said Soto expected to go under 19.5. And for Josh Naylor, we set the over-under at 14.5. So how many people think Josh Naylor goes over 14.5 steals next season?
Looks like
not many.
Almost the exact same people.
Sam, the Mariners fan, is going to say over on Josh Naylor. And then everyone else is going to say under, obviously. So the results there, 67% said Josh Naylor under 14.5 based on the polls that we ran. And you know what, Chris? We put these numbers out before Steamer projections came out. Steamer has Soto for 20, Josh Naylor for 15.
That's very good. Look at us.
We
got to move to Vegas.
Fantasy odds maker right here. I don't know. It might have a future in it. What do you think right now? What is your lean for both Soto and Josh Naylor?
both of these made so little sense that I can't even intellectualize my thoughts on what Juan Soto should not have stolen 38 bases. Josh Naylor shouldn't have stolen 30. Before those two, the slowest player in the StatCast era with 30 steals in a season was Kyle Tucker. He was 33rd percentile in sprint speed. I think Juan Soto was 15th percentile this season, and Josh Naylor, like you said, was 2nd percentile. These were by far, but and the craziest thing about Josh Naylor in particular was I had a running joke with my friend where we just text each other every time he stole a base. And when he got to Seattle, it was every other game, and usually no throw. I feel half of his steals, he didn't even slide. Yeah. He was just getting these outrageously good jumps. And I have no idea how sustainable or predictive any of that is. I know the Mets lost their first base coach, which a lot of people have credited for their incredible base stealing, especially Soto. And I have to take the under on both just because they're slow. They have no track record of this before. And also I think with Naylor, I will add, there's a little bit of what we saw with Willy Adames in 2024 where it's a contract year.
Right.
One of the things you can control is how often you run, because it's about skill, but it's also about wanting to do it. And there's some financial incentive in being able to say, hey, I stole 30 bases last year. Look at what a positive I was on the base paths.
Just to prove how unlikely this was, again, even more unlikely, Soto had 34 total steals in his previous 4 seasons combined entering this past year. And again, he had 38. Josh Naylor, his previous high was 10. He went from 6 to 30. He had 25 total steals in 598 career games entering 2025.
It was so fun.
I mean, that's the beauty of baseball, right? I mean, it's just two of the slowest guys is going out there and stealing 30-plus bags. It reminds me of Pujols back in the day.
Yeah.
One of the slowest players in baseball, but just baseball savvy IQ. He was able to steal 12 to 15 bases.
Late career Freddie Freeman has consistently been a 12 to, I think he had 23 a couple years ago. Well, not. It's just, it's not just about speed. It's about jumps and getting good reads and all that stuff. I can't bet on this happening again or anything close. And I don't think you can value them as if they're going to do it again. That's what makes it really tough, especially for Naylor, who I think was the number 3 first baseman this season. But if he had 11 steals instead, which would have been a career high, he's probably the number 9 first baseman. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes it much more difficult to try to figure out what to value these guys. I'm going to guess I'm going to be out on Naylor at price this year, just because
depends what
I don't really think I can buy him expecting him to contribute much for stolen bases.
The early ADP 71.4 on Josh Naylor, that's not terrible.
I feel like he was later the year before and was worse as a hitter in 2025, so that's my concern. Just that if the steals are going to get cut in half, we obviously need to figure out where he lands also.
I would take the under for both as well. You mentioned the Mets lost Antoine Richardson as their first base coach. He went to the Atlanta Braves, and not only Soto, but other Mets players credited Antoine Richardson for helping them kind of improve the jumps that they were getting, the leads that they were getting.
Draft Matt Olson for speed.
Yeah, Matt Olson. Ronald Acuna bounce back for speed.
Maybe.
We'll see what happens there. Josh Naylor, I will say under as well, but with a caveat that if he goes back to Seattle, I could see him going over 14.5. I could see 15 to 20 for Josh Naylor if he goes back to the Seattle Mariners.
Well, because I mentioned Willy Adames, I think his second highest total was 2025. He just lost about 10 from his 2024 total. So,
All right, let's move on and talk about some prospects here. And the next question, which top prospect makes their debut first in 2026? The options, Connor Griffin of the Pirates, Kevin McGonigle of the Tigers, who we spoke about earlier, J.J. Weatherholt with the Cardinals, Colt Emerson with the Mariners, Andrew Painter with the Phillies, or other. And the results, before I get to the results, I guess, which top prospect makes their debut first? I'll ask you guys. We'll go with Connor Griffin of the Pirates. Okay, we got 2 hands there.
I will say you can vote for multiples because they could, they could
all debut on opening day, I guess, Kevin McGonigle with the Tigers. All right, quite a few hands on McGonigle. What about J.J. Weatherholt with the Cardinals?
I think he's the one who gets confirmed first, I think.
Yeah. Next up, we have Andrew Painter, the Phillies. And lastly, we have Colt Emerson with the Mariners. Yep, no surprise there. All right, I love it. So the results, J.J. Weatherholt was the leader in who makes their debut first next season at 33%. Andrew Painter was second at 28%. Kevin McGonigle at 26%. And Connor Griffin at 8%. We did have a write-in vote that said, like, multiple people just make their opening day debut, which
I think
could totally happen. I could see Weatherholt and McGonigle up on opening day.
It's not going to be Painter. Because he's unlikely to be the opening day starter for the Phillies, but I think there's a decent chance he's in the, like, you could look at it as when do they get announced as being, like, who gets announced first. I would say that's probably Weatherholt, but I think Weatherholt, I think McGonigle, I'm Painter. I need to pick the brains of some smart people because I thought his season was really discouraging, even knowing he was coming back from Tommy John surgery, even knowing how young he is. I think he's turns 22 on opening day or something like that.
23 on April 10th.
Yeah. So, there's still a lot of room, but it's giving me like Shane Baz post Tommy John surgery vibes where like the skills are still there. The velocity's mostly still there, but he just wasn't really good at anything.
5.26 ERA, 149 whip.
And it didn't get better. That's one of the things for me is just if you struggle first coming back, Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara this season, both were not great early on, but both started to click in, and you just never saw that with Andrew Painter at AAA. We thought it was guaranteed that he would be up at some point. He just never forced the Phillies' hand. So I'm a little worried about Andrew Painter.
I think you and I have the same answer for this one, and honestly, I don't think we have the time of games on opening day. I mean, I was going to get really technical on, like, what time do guys play on opening day?
Do the Cubs and Dodgers again? And no, someone's playing in Japan
so
again this year.
I don't think there is any games overseas because the World Baseball Classic is going on. Okay. And this is weird. I don't remember this ever happening before. There's an opening night game.
Okay, yeah,
the night before opening day, and it's the Yankees and Giants at I think like 8 p.m. Eastern time or something. And then
maybe Spencer Jones. Maybe that's the
We'll see what happens.
Answer.
No, Bryce Eldridge already made his debut, so yeah, that one wouldn't count either. Both of our answers are J.J. Weatherholt as the guy that we think, but I could see Kevin McGonigle as well. Why do you think J.J. Weatherholt is the top option to be up on opening day?
He's one that there's just plainly, of all these guys, I think he's had the most success at AAA. He got there at the end of the season, more than held his own. Doesn't seem like there's much left for him to learn at the minor league level, and whether it's second base, whether it's third base, if they find someone to take Nolan Arenado and convince Nolan Arenado to take someone on, I just think Weatherholt is all but guaranteed a starting spot, to the point where I think it's a Christian Campbell situation where even if he's not great at spring training, I think they're just going to ride with him.
Yeah, and we spoke about Kevin McGonigle earlier, what we saw him do in the AFL while we've been out here. I mean, his numbers overall, he's hitting over 400, I believe.
Arguably the top prospect in
OPS
baseball.
over 1,000 here in the AFL, and the only thing about McGonigle, he's only played 46 games at AA, so...
And I think the batting average was a little low at
it was 254 at AA.
Yeah, he hit a speed bump for the first time. It's nothing concerning. I think strikeout rate was still very solid. Plate discipline's excellent. But he's mastered the high minors slightly less than J.J. Weatherholt, even though he is probably the better prospect.
Yeah, my answer is Weatherholt as well. He's older than these others. He's 23 years old. He already got 47 games in at AAA, got better each time he got promoted in 2025. Overall numbers hit 306, 17 home runs, 23 steals, 931 OPS. He's got a great eye at the plate. Nearly as many walks as strikeouts, which is incredible. I could see 260, 270-ish, 15 as a rookie for J.J. Weatherholt, which... would be
useful player,
a borderline, starter in a 12-team league, or like a corner or middle infielder or something like that.
I will say
for next season,
Connor Griffin, when Scott and I did I think you were out of town in September, so we did like an early bold predictions for 2026, and one of mine was Connor Griffin is on the opening day roster for the Pirates. I think he'll just have turned 20 on opening day, if that at all. He's super young. He's barely played. I think, did he get to AA? He might have just gotten to AA.
Yeah.
That one, though, the Pirates need to look like they're trying. I know that's not like the can you count on the Pirates to look like they're trying? Maybe not, but I just think there were 2 different appearances that Bob Nutting had at PNC Park last year, and I think he got booed by everybody at the stadium at both times. the Pirates are not in a good place PR-wise, despite having Paul Skeens. I think they have to have some forward momentum this year, and I do think getting Connor Griffin on the opening day roster might be a way to get a little cheap heat from the fans.
And it's been a popular question this weekend too. Just lots of prospect people out here. We've been asking people what they think, and it's pretty split. I mean, some people think that the Pirates could be really aggressive and Connor Griffin is up on opening day, possibly signing an extension this offseason and kind of, starting that clock and gives them a reason to be up on opening day if they really want to be aggressive. But again, we don't really have a track record of the Pirates doing things like that.
Smart
or
things.
Just keeping him down all the way until like August or September and then not starting his clock until 2027. They
might burn the north side down if they did that. Like that's just like I don't think the Pirates can get away. Like I look at this point, maybe they just view it as like a sunk cost. Who cares? Their fans hate them anyway. It doesn't matter. But that would feel so, especially if he holds his own at spring training. I don't think they can go into the season not trying again. Like Paul Skeens is going to demand a trade. Like it's the worst case scenario.
Might happen this offseason.
He probably should.
Non-zero chance. Well, while we're talking prospects, let's wrap up our discussion on the tough questions for next season with one final prospect question. Who should be the first prospect drafted in 2026?
First rookie eligible.
Prospect E player in 2026. And lots of options here. There's Bryce Eldridge with the Giants, Trey Savage with the Blue Jays, who was exactly that in the postseason, a savage. Nolan McLean with the Mets, Bubba Chandler with the Pirates, Sam Basayo with the Orioles, Kevin McGonigle with the Tigers, Connor Griffin with the Pirates, J.J. Weatherholt with the Cardinals. Lots of names here, so I'm not going to poll the audience once again, but I will just reveal the results. And it was basically a two-man race here, Chris. It was 36% for Trey Savage, 34% for Nolan McLean. The next closest was Bubba Chandler at 8%. So I guess what do you think about those results? Is it recency bias? We just saw Trey Savage, or is that your answer too? Do you think he should be the top rookie prospect player drafted next season?
I would go Nolan McLean. I think it's a little bit of an upside versus floor thing where Nolan McLean just more proven at the highest levels.
Gets a ton of ground balls.
Has a great team around him, although we suspect Trey Savage will as well.
I mean, as a Yankee fan, I hope they suck. Probably not going to happen.
But I really like Nolan McLean's skill set, that deep arsenal. He reminds me a lot of Logan Webb in the way he attacks hitters, has a great four-seamer for whiffs, has multiple breaking balls he can throw for strikes.
It's like Logan Webb with even more strikeout upside.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, because, Webb took a step forward this year, but he's kind of peaked around 26, 28%. Maybe Nolan McLean can be a little better than that. So I think McLean, I think you have a higher innings floor. Savage didn't throw a ton of innings this season. So I think McLean just a little safer with plenty of upside of his own. I do want to highlight Bryce Eldridge just because I think there's something you see there. This is just a name to remember because Bryce Eldridge, coming into last season, midway, whenever before Nick Kurtz got called up, very similar prospects. Bryce Eldridge might have actually been ranked higher on at least a couple of lists. And obviously Nick Kurtz, you take Nick Kurtz over Bryce Eldridge, what he did at the major league level. But I do think what we're seeing with Bryce Eldridge a little bit is he got called up for those 10 games at the end of the season. We learned after the season he needed wrist surgery. He was bad in those 10 games, and I think it's one of those situations where if he doesn't get called up and he just finishes the season with, an 850 OPS and 25, 30 home runs, whatever he got at AAA, he probably goes earlier than he will in this timeline where he got called up for 10 games, which is nothing. You can't learn anything about a player in 10 games. So Bryce Eldridge is someone will be a very popular sleeper pick for me, will be on all my sleeper lists, and I'm very excited, even if I don't think he should win this poll, obviously.
Yeah, and the early ADP, again, we're dealing with a very small sample size so far. It's 20 NFBC drafts that have been completed to this point. Nolan McLean is far and away the answer to this question. He's 118.4 is the early ADP there. Trey Savage, 161.7.
That's going to keep going up, though.
Yeah, that's going to keep going up. Yeah, I think so, too.
Struck out 12 in the World Series. Probably some of those drafts hadn't even finished by then.
Yeah. How about Bubba Chandler? His ADP is actually a few spots higher than Trey Savage so far.
I think that will obviously switch. But that's another one where, Chandler had that weird funk mid-season, but then he got called up to the majors and looked
Because he should have been up in May.
I think he just got. I think he probably got in his own head. I don't want to like armchair psychologize or anything, but I think he probably just realized, okay, they're not going to call me up no matter what I do, so I'm not going to give my best. I don't think it was like a conscious thing, but yeah, he probably was not at full bore.
All right, so those were the toughest questions for 2026. We are going to play Scotty Doesn't Know. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know how this usually works. I give you one statistical clue. You try to guess the player. The point is actually to get it wrong so that I could play the sound clip Scotty Doesn't Know from made famous by the 2004 classic Euro trip, of course. But I mentioned earlier, Chris, that the question we have received most this weekend is, where is Scott White? Why don't we try to find out where Scott White is?
I think do it. Call him. Scott might be really mad about getting a call at like.
You know, it's 7:51.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
It's almost 10 o'clock
Yeah.
in South Florida right now. The odds-on favorite is that
I don't
he's
think
not
he's
going to
gonna
answer this call.
answer.
I mean, normally, like, if he saw a call from me, he probably wouldn't answer it anyway.
And then I
but
think
at
if
10
he-
o'clock on a Friday while he knows we're together in Arizona, there's virtually no
I
chance
think if
he's
he
going to
finds
answer
out
this.
you're playing it on a Bluetooth speaker in a room full of people, he's going to hang up immediately.
Yeah, what do we got? What are the odds?
Three,
that,
3.5 rings before he sends it to voicemail.
All right, so where in the world is Scott White? Let's see if he answers here. All right. It's coming out of the speaker. We are calling Scott White live. First pitch, Arizona. All right, we've got 2 rings. 9:52 on the East Coast. That's 3. Scott! So, Scott, if you haven't figured this out yet, we are podcasting live at First Pitch Arizona. We are calling you through a Bluetooth
At 10
speaker,
p.m., I'm sorry.
and everybody here can hear you right now. And they want to know, where is Scott White? So that's why we called you.
I am in South Florida, where I live.
Woo!
I'm in my living room.
How's it going?
In your grandma's living room?
I'm eating some of my kids' Halloween candy.
Love it.
They're in bed, so they don't know.
We won't tell him.
We won't tell them. All right, Scott. Now, look, we are ecstatic. The odds were that there's no chance that you were going to answer my phone call at nearly 10 p.m. Eastern time on a Friday night, but we are so glad that you did. So glad that we're going to ask you for 30 seconds. I did not prompt you for this, so I do apologize in advance. A quick 30 seconds on why you love Ben Rice for next season.
Why I love Ben Rice for next season? Well, he's catcher eligible, but I think there's a good chance he's just a Yankees everyday first baseman. And I think he's awesome. I mean, even if you look beyond just the top line stats he put up in 2025, like StatCast suggests he's so much more than that because of like he underperformed all his expected stats, and there's nothing tricky in the profile. Like the pull air rate is awesome, and he's a left-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium. So, like, I buy it. I buy the expected stats. I don't think there's any, like, trick in the numbers there. And so I think he could be even better and play even more and be catcher eligible. It'll be amazing.
Guys, round of applause for Scott White.
Woo!
Let's go.
We love you, Scotty.
Completely unprompted. He did not know this was coming. In fact, Chris and I thought of it like an hour before we were going to podcast. We're like, yeah, let's give Scott a call and figure out where he is. So, Scott, we appreciate it immensely. Enjoy the candy.
All right. I'm glad I can contribute.
Yes, and we're actually about to play Scotty Doesn't Know, so. All right, man. Have a good night. Have a good Kokomo Friday. All right, that was amazing.
Love that.
There was
That
no
was
way I
great.
thought he was going to answer
That went way better than I
And
expected.
to be completely honest, check my text messages with Scott. He had no idea that was coming. Like, I did not prompt him at all. He's probably going to text me right now and say how much he hates me. Don't ever do that ever again. But it was totally worth it. So, let's play Scotty Doesn't Know. We are
Do we
going
have
to have
anybody in the audience named Scott, by the way?
anybody in the audience named Scott.
No Scotts, okay. We were going to give first priority to answering
I was
questions.
like, yeah, if your name is Scott, you automatically get to play first. So anybody want to lie and say their name?
If we have a Scoot?
Scott? Scoot? Henderson? Scott? Anyone?
No? All right.
All right, well, who would like to play? Scotty doesn't know. Come on up.
Come on.
Come on up.
It's okay.
Yeah, let's go. There's your microphone. You can grab that over there.
Come play the game you're designed to lose.
Yes, everyone loves this game.
I want to lose.
All right.
Right here.
What is your name? Where are you from?
Jonathan from Orlando, Florida.
Woo, give it up for Jonathan. We appreciate you. All right. So, Scotty doesn't know. Again, I will give you a clue. You will try your best to answer it. It's totally fine if you get it right. Not really. But if you get it right, okay. If you get it wrong, we play the sound drop. All right. So, I was the 4th biggest underachiever in WOBA versus ex-WOBA this past season. It could be anybody.
So I will say, there was a hint.
Don't help him. All right.
WOBA versus ex-WOBA?
Yeah. Who was an underachiever in StatCast this season?
Oh, my gosh.
It could be anybody.
This is stage fright.
It's totally fine.
It's so opposite of Ben. I'll just say Cody Bellinger.
You know what? He plays for the same team. It is Ben Rice.
Okay. That's why.
Yes. So the answer was Ben Rice. We appreciate you. The batting average for Ben Rice was 255. The XBA was 289. The slug for Ben Rice, 499. The X slug, 551. As great as he was as a rookie, Chris, he might be even better next year. I mean, there's a legitimate chance he hits 280 with 35-plus homers.
Yeah. Top 20 in ex-WOBA. The one thing I will point out is he did also underperform his expected stats in 2024. It was a much smaller sample size. He got better across the board at everything, but we do have 2 samples of Ben Rice underperforming his expectations, which is surprising. Left-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium, that's kind of the opposite of what you would expect.
Great pulled air rate.
So I mean, we did, yeah. If you were playing your FBT drinking game, we got a pulled air rate from Scott. So
you are going to get that a lot this offseason, by the way. Like Scott's pet stat, pulled air rate, you're going to get that a lot.
But that is the one hesitation I have in saying, oh yeah, Ben Rice is just a superstar, because it was a little bit of underperformance, but he got so much better in his second season. And we saw it in spring training. I remember he had 4 batted balls in spring training that were harder hit than any batted ball that he had tracked.
And his swing speed was up a lot, too.
And so there were signs that this was going to happen. And look, I saw a quote from Aaron Boone that they're going to play him like 10 to 15 games at catcher in 2025. Or 2026. That's the hope. Let's make it an even 20.
Yeah, let's get
That's
even
all.
20
Let's
for
get
the following
20
season,
for Ben
right?
Rice, 20 for Agustín Ramirez, and then no more. Neither of them should be playing catcher more than that.
The early ADP, by the way, Ben Rice is going at 77.6 as the catcher 5, right behind Hunter Goodman. Who would you take right now? Just snap decision, Hunter Goodman versus Ben Rice.
Goodman, I think, is my number.
I think so,
3.
too, but you could just dream on that upside there with Ben Rice. All right, Scotty doesn't know. Any other participants? We have 3 other questions. So
Come on,
anybody...
someone be
All right,
brave.
let's hop on up. Woo! Let's do it. All right, what's your name? Where are you from?
Jim, Indianapolis.
All right, Jim. Like that Cardinals hat, too. You were very excited about J.J. Weatherhold. All right.
Yeah.
I led all qualified hitters in OPS in the second half of the season. An 1121 OPS. Who did it?
Should we get a hint?
Was it Kurtz? Nick Kurtz?
It was not Nick Kurtz. Jim doesn't know. Jim doesn't know. Jim doesn't know. No, it's a great job there. It was George Springer who carried everything over into the postseason where he was ridiculous. And Chris, to be honest, we could have totally just had a tough question about George Springer for next season too.
Yeah, I really don't know what to make of it. Bounced back at 36 with arguably the best season of his career. The underlying numbers completely back it up. He kept it up in the postseason despite playing through multiple injuries. And that's one thing to keep in mind with George Springer is early in his career, we missed a ton of time from him with injuries. That hasn't really been an issue the last 4 seasons. It hasn't been 162 games, but it's been mostly 135, 140, 145. Last year was almost certainly a best case scenario for George Springer, and I don't think you should expect a repeat of that, but 25 homers, a 275 batting average, 15 steals, that all feels pretty doable, and it's probably going to make him I think his early ADP has been outside of the top 100 still. So there's still room for George Springer to provide some value.
The early ADP is right at 110 as the 24th outfielder off the board. Steamer projections came out the other day. They had Springer as the 10th best outfielder based on Steamer projections for next season. So he is a crazy one. I mean, if you look at the OPSs by year, the previous 4 seasons, starting in 2021, 907, 814, 732, 674, and then all the way up to 959, which
started
is
elevating the ball,
crazy.
started hitting the ball harder. It was, the plate discipline was as good as ever. It was wild.
All right, we have 2 more questions. Scotty doesn't know.
We got 2 more.
Anybody?
brief folks.
Come on down. Woo! Let's do it.
Someone wearing a Hawaiian shirt. We love it. Thank you.
Yes. All right, there's the microphone. Sir, what's your name? Where are you from?
Mike, Scottsdale.
And Mike, by the way, has been on the podcast before, so he is a repeat offender. We do appreciate everything that you did and having you on previously. So,
Thank you.
do you know? Let's
Probably
find out.
not.
I had the 4th highest Stuff Plus among qualified starting pitchers in the second half of the season.
Stuff plus.
4th highest Stuff Plus.
4th highest, not the highest. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a very specific, like the 4th highest. I don't know who had the 4th highest Stuff Plus.
I'm going to go with Garrett Crochet.
Garrett Crochet. Wrong! We do appreciate you coming down. You can definitely tell who made this list
Yeah, we got a couple
based on all the Yankees on this list.
Yeah.
It was Cam Schlittler. He had the 4th highest Stuff Plus in the second half of the season. Carried that into the postseason as well. Dominant outing against the Boston Red Sox. Pretty good outing against the Blue Jays. Didn't get nearly as many strikeouts, but he is right in that conversation for next season with Nolan McLean and Trey Savage and Jacob Misiorowski as who is that next young starting pitcher that you want to draft as maybe your SP3 for next season.
And this crop of second year, these guys who were called up in the second half or haven't been called up, there's a lot of really interesting names on there, even beyond those guys you mentioned. Schlittler, the one red flag I have is just he was so dependent on having a dominant fastball. And that fastball has gone from he averaged like 95.5 miles per hour in AAA last season. Gets to AAA this year, he's throwing like 96.9. And then the majors, I think he was the second or third hardest throwing pitcher in baseball among starters. He was averaging like 98.5 or something. And that's the one thing where it's just his velocity has jumped up so much over the past couple of years. Maybe he was just holding something back. Maybe it was just, he took a step forward. But if that fastball takes another step or takes a step back in 2026, the secondary arsenal was more good as a rookie than great, and he really relied on having a dominant fastball. I don't think he had a pitch with a whiff rate over 28%. So that's the one.
But 28% for a fastball is amazing.
Especially,
but he needs that. Perhaps he needs that velocity to be at 98, 99 consistently to get that many whiffs on his fastball. And we actually heard earlier this weekend, Ron Chandler, the great Ron Chandler, made a great point. I believe one of the people that he's going to have in the baseball forecaster for next season is a doctor, and one of the biggest warning signs was actually fastball velocity jumping up multiple miles per hour, like year over year. So perhaps there's even more injury risk with someone like Cam Schlittler, as much as I hate to say it. But, he looked dominant, but I think it's a little risky.
It's a little scary.
Does the fastball come down a little bit, and the fastball velocity going up as much
Is
as
just
it
the
did?
whole profile sustainable based on what he did? I think it's a fair question.
It was exciting. It's crazy. All right, we are on to the last one. Scotty doesn't know.
We got one more. Come on, guys.
Who do we got?
No
Yeah, let's go. Woohoo! Paul Sporer in the building. What is your actual name and where are you
My
from?
name is Andy, and I'm from Detroit.
Yeah!
Just like Paul Sporer.
Let's go. Love it. So I will just let you know right now, this is not a Detroit Tiger, so that's the only hint that you're going to get. I had the very specific 9th best
We all know who the
expected
ninth
ERA.
best xERA was.
Yeah, the 9th best xERA among qualified starting pitchers. This is for the entire season, not just the second half.
Frank, was it Max Fried?
Was it Max?
No,
That's a good guess based on the way it's
a guy who
gone
used
so
to
far.
pitch for my team.
But it is someone that used to pitch for Chris's team. You are wrong! So the 9th best xERA among qualified starting pitchers was Jesus Luzardo.
Yep.
So Jesus Luzardo had a 3.92 ERA, a 3.31 xERA. We know he had those multiple just brutal blow-up starts in the middle of the season when he was tipping his pitches, whatever was going wrong. But the underlying skills were tremendous for Luzardo.
I think it's usually a mistake to play if you take out, the 3 worst starts. Like
Scott loves doing that, by the way.
Yeah, with the Bailey Ober one last year, if he wanted, he could defend himself if he was here.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm kind of piling on Scott. Come on, man. Scott, answer the phone at 10 p.m. We love him.
I think that's usually a mistake, and you're usually better off not trying to figure out, that doesn't count. But in Luzardo's case, it was 20 earned runs across 2 consecutive starts. We had an explanation for why it happened. And then after that, it was, mid-3s ERA or better the rest of the season. So I do think, I'm not going to say you just throw those 2 starts out. They happened. They are part of his risk profile. Maybe he is prone to those kind of blow-ups. We've seen that throughout his career. He's very dependent on hitting that 96 mile per hour fastball because he has the worst extension of any starter in baseball. He's got not great shape on his 4-seamer, but the skills last year that he showed were really strong. And it was really, if you take those 2 starts out, maybe you shouldn't, but if you do, his ERA was basically right in that 3.30 range.
Yep.
And so I do think, maybe this is a case where it's not the worst idea to do that, although if I'm being consistent, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, Jesus Luzardo, by the way, 28 years old, entering a contract year next year, has dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the course of his career.
And
but
he's got a little bit of that Blake Snell, Dylan Cease, where it's you're usually better off buying the dip
I was
than
exactly going to say, last year was the time to buy Jesus Luzardo when his ADP was outside of the 250. His early ADP now is 95.
Yeah,
so
it's
gone up quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's going just behind Dylan Cease, Nick Pivetta, Yuri Perez.
fitting. I think that's the right range.
Yeah. You would be comfortable with, maybe not comfortable, but would you
I
be
don't
all
know.
right with Jesus Luzardo as your SP2 in drafts?
Ooh. I'd have to feel really good about my SP1, or I would have to really feel like I'm going to invest a lot in my SP3 and 4 after.
Or maybe he's your SP3 and you're just aggressive early on. Whatever, SP3 in the 8th or 9th
But
round, something like that.
all those guys you mentioned are super volatile. I think, Nick Pivetta was great this season. First time in his career he had an ERA below 4. Some of the peripherals weren't quite as good. Cease is maybe the most maddening pitcher in baseball. I can't watch him pitch. It makes me angry. And Yuri Perez, I think he's awesome, but we're still waiting for it. We're still waiting, especially for the secondaries, to get to the point where the 4-seamer already is. So I think that's a risky range that I may not draft much of, but I think it's the appropriate range for a guy like Jesus Luzardo, who clearly has a ton of upside.
All right, that's going to do it. Give yourself an awesome round of applause. You guys were great. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
We are going to wrap there. For Chris Towers, producer James Gale, I am Frank Stampfl. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today, and we will be back again, I guess, next year live in person. We'll be on the podcast later this week, assuming our flights don't get canceled. Bye-bye!